Hello and welcome to Homer for Tuesday, June 24th, 2025. Today we will be reading from lines 155 down to 165 in Book 11 of the Iliad. Today we have a beautiful Homeric simile, and we also have some very pathetic images about the Iliadic battlefield. Some notes as to how exactly it worked. I hope you enjoy, and thank you for being here. And as when consuming fire falls upon thick woodland, and the whirling wind beareth it every whither, and the thickets fall utterly as they are assailed by the onrush of the fire, even so beneath Agamemnon, son of Atreus, fell the heads of the Trojans as they fled, and many horses with high-arched necks rattled empty cars along the dikes of battle. Gepuras. Where is this? Tolemoio. Lacking their peerless charioteers, who were lying upon the ground, dear far to the vultures than to their wives. But Hector did Zeus draw forth from the missiles and the dust, from the manslaying and the blood and the din. But the son of Atreus followed after, calling fiercely to the Danaans. Let's sing it. Sote puaraide lonenak suloiem pesauolei. Pande de lupon anemos pere voidete tamnoi. Proris doid piptuis inepe comenoi puros hormei. Os arupatre idea Agamemnoni pipta careina. Troon pel konton poiloi teri jaukena sipoi. Keino kea kortaliston naptolemoi ja kepuras. En jokus poteun tässä myömona soide pigaie. Keia tuo gupesin polu pilteroja lukkoisin. Keijätö kyöpäsin polo filteroja olakoisin. Hectore dek belauan jupages deosek tekonies. Ektandrok ta siesek ta haimatosek tukudoimu. Atreides epetos vedanon danoisik lauon. Awesome. Okay, so let's start with the last three lines. Let's start thinking about the last three lines. Zeus took Hector out of the missiles, blah, blah, blah. And the dust. There's a lot of dust. Why is there a lot of dust? Because the Iliad happens in the summertime. Seems pretty obvious, but how many people know that? You go up and you ask any, scholar, when did the Iliad happen? Did it happen in the winter or the summer? It's kind of hard, but this is one of the pieces of evidence. There's always dust in the air. And Hector's not there because the Iliad doesn't like humiliating people in indirect ways. So the crux is, Hector wasn't there to notice his comrades being slain because Zeus removed him, which is a very noble thing. It's not that he was also being routed. So let's look at these lines up here, the first 8 lines of our reading. We can divide it into 2 halves. The first 3 lines from Hos down to Puros Hormei, which describes the simile of the fire raging over the forest. Axuloi is a hapax legomenon, right? It never occurs elsewhere. Topic of discussion in Hellenistic scholarship. And then the second half is from Hos, the other half of the simile, down to alokoisin, right? And they're there's 3, I think, very beautifully charged compilations of, images that we have here. The first very charged image is this idea of the fire, right? fire is a very captivating thing, sure, but we forget how amazing fire is when it's really overtaking a vast swath of land. It becomes the everything in the world. It blots out the sky, and as a metaphor for removing the heavens from view, and also the ground because of the smoke that is obscuring it, you can really only see the percussion of its light as it emanates around every bit of the sensed world. So too are the Achaeans coming over the Trojans. So beneath Agamemnon, son of Atreus, fell the heads of the Trojans as they fled. And what happens here when that happens? Well, many empty chariots are rolling along the path of war. This is a metaphor in and of itself, right? Because why are they empty? Well, they're empty because their charioteers are gone, right? How do you express that their charioteers are gone? Well, they're desiring, the chariots, right, are desiring to have blameless, peerless, noble, however you want to describe it, excellent charioteers. It's a common pathetic simile, right? But at the same time, it's quite touching. The noble horses, poloi dariaukenas hippoi, the high-necked horses, right, are in search of their noble amyumonos charioteers, none to be found as they traverse the paths of war. And why? Because they are along the ground, right? And why are they along the ground? Well, because they are now more beloved. They are of more use to the crows, right, to the vultures, than they are to their wives, which is quite devastating indeed to think about. That once you are dead, I mean, yeah, you're more desirable to the vultures. Your body is than it is to those who love you because you're dead. It really hits. I guess the last thing that you can point out here is the connection of the 2x2. So, as when fire falls upon thick woodland, and the whirling wind beareth it everywhere, and the thickets fall utterly as they are assailed by the honors of the fire, right? So, where are the charioteers and the horsemen here, right? Charioteers, horsemen, and wives, right? Can you find those three things? And this is what I like to do. Can you find those three things in this simile, right? Actually, I would go so far as to say that, so the fire itself is going across the Axuloi, right? The Axuloi are probably the Trojans as a whole, right? Obviously they're Trojan, but what about the thickets, right? The thickets fall as they, as they are, done by the fire. So I'd say the thickets are the proristoi piptusin, right? The thamnoi, right? These thickets by the root, right? Are the men, right, who are totally destroyed, right? They fall to the ground, right? And perhaps the women can be found in this idea of the wind, in that, as the wind is sweeping over them, right? The wind is a very helpful thing for the trees, but it's also a very bad thing. And in every single way, they are gone, which is, in some ways, because it's true that, a body is actually valuable to a grieving wife, right? But here, in every which way, the tragedy is uncompromisable, which is, I think, in spirit what is going on here with the anemos, right? Pardon the pun. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed our inspection of these two passages, or, two connecting sections of lines. And I look forward to sharing more with you tomorrow. Have a great day, and see you later.